Welcome everyone to the 70th Tesla Beat podcast with our amazing hosts and co-hosts. We have FutureAza, formerly My Tesla Weekend. We have Hans. What's up, Hans? Always living in the rave party. And then we have Joe from Tesla Owners San Joaquin Valley. What a big night! It was absolutely insane. I mean, to the point I'm literally at the airport right now. So I think what we can do is, and shout out to Joe for just taking the point on this. But last night they unveiled the Tesla Robovan and Robotaxi and CyberCab. I would love to know what your thoughts were when this rolled out. If you were like, especially when the Robovan came out, and even Elon's entrance. Just like, what were your impressions overall last night? And then Joe, I'll lean on you a little bit if there's anything in the deck you want to call out or you want me to navigate to. I'll do that because I'm at the airport.
Well, I will start by saying I was just sure that was Hans that was getting the announcements, but it's fine either way. No, the Robotaxi, I was not surprised to see it. I don't think anyone was. It was close enough to the sketches that we're all like, yeah, that's about right. But the van, the Art Deco locomotive toaster, beautiful work of art, and definitely something I was not expecting. I hoped for something like that. I think it's got a perfect use case in the boring tunnel, for example, but also just as a larger people mover, a party bus, anything you want it to be. And like Franz was telling people at the event last night, different seating configurations for different purposes. Of course, Wall Street, not super impressed. They came for an AI demo and they got teleoperated robots and cars doing a loop that our cars could frankly do. So I don't think they saw what they needed to see. And I think I imagine they're concerned about timelines because timelines have been tricky. Timelines more than a month or two out gets into a real gray area, and we're breaking new ground. We're forging new territories here, and it's tough. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And Wall Street wants it now. They are the Violet Beauregard of the Wonka factory, if you will.
Yeah, that's accurate. I think we are. I think what we're seeing is Wall Street being Wall Street, right? They hated the Cybertruck. How is it going to sell? How would anybody even buy it? It looked hideous, and we see where that ended up. They did not like the Model Y event. It was one of Tesla's worst events ever, and it was just a larger Model 3. Who would want this thing? It's the best-selling vehicle in the world. So I don't really care about Wall Street personally. They never get it until it's too late, and hopefully everybody is investing wisely and making good choices. But I think it was an amazing event. I think it's cool to see Tesla's vision for the future, and how really futuristic the future is starting to look, and it's all really thanks to Tesla. If it wasn't for Tesla doing these things and moving things forward the way they are, like, who knows where we would be? You know what I mean? Like, it's just really cool to see a vision of the future actually look like what the sci-fi movies make it look like. And now we're just really so close to that, and it's happening in our lifetime. I was ecstatic. It was awesome.
I did want to issue a quick correction. I'm pretty sure it was Violet Beauregard, not Veruca Salt, just for the people who will catch it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually kind of going back and forth with Nick Gibbs last night on this a little bit, and I think it's easy for, like, I was in the mindset of trying to prepare people for what I expected the response to be from the broader public to the event, and it's pretty much playing out as I expected. That the narrative is going to be, oh, Elon's just being Elon, talking nonsense, vaporware. I loved the event. I thought it was incredible. Are there questions that are still left unanswered? Well, yeah, but that's because we're huge Tesla nerds and we can think of a million questions, and none of the events ever answer all the questions. That's not possible. But like I was super impressed by the design of the CyberCab, by the progress of the Optimus project. And then, like you guys said, that Robovan was insane. It like immediately flashbacks to the iRobot movie, which obviously is part of the reference. And like you can very much understand the We Robot title reference when you're talking about Optimus bots plus the cyber cabs and then plus that crazy looking Art Deco Robovan.
Robovan, there you go.
Yeah, it was insane. And all of that said, like, you know, the future that they are working towards is such a grand and incredibly transformative future that like you just don't get there overnight. And the same thing with going to Mars. Like the Starship is an incredibly audacious project, and robotaxis are an incredibly audacious project. And like that comes with delays, but if like us, you have a time horizon that is, you know, longer than Ross Gerber's hair, then perhaps you can actually think about what this could mean in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And when you think on those timescales, like this is really cool.
I wanted to say my second biggest disappointment at the event was the false advertising. When I tune in for Wii Robot and they're normal sized, I'm here for the Wii robots. I don't know what's going on, and I'm very confused.
Yeah, there were not many wee robots.
No, very disappointing. Should we look at the video?
Yeah, let's do it.
First glimpses, so first of all, I like that it is cyber inspired, but not a cyber truck. It still has, you can still see conventional curves in it, conventional lines. I put out a video this morning breaking down all the ways that this was designed for manufacturability. One of the key things is there's no flat lines where there's a seam. So like on the hood of your Model 3, where the bumper comes up and the hood touches it, it never quite lines up well, they eliminated that. The interior, there's no continuous lines from panel to panel for them to need to line up. They engineered a lot of shortcomings and difficulties out of the vehicle completely so that the cost savings is going to be insane, and it's hard to ignore when you break it down. I think I did 13, 14 points. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
definitely
it's
encourage
cool.
people to go watch that video breakdown on the manufacturability in full.
Oh, you've seen it already. It's only been out a couple hours. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that there was more than one. I speculated this because it just seemed like the right thing to do. But 20, I didn't expect them to have 20 of those, and that's crazy.
20 was the very highest number I could imagine. And the fact that they were at that number definitely surprised me. I also would have guessed a few, 2 to 3, but you knew that number would not satisfy the crowd.
Right.
And even 20, I don't think satisfied the crowd. I saw Justin, the Bearded Tesla guy's video. It was, I don't know, almost midnight, and there was still a long line. He said, a lot of these people are not going to get a ride. But they were keeping the line moving. And it's just a neat experience to see.
Yeah, and I also like the design of it. I think they hit a lot of points on that. And in Gary's video showing that the trunk opening, that's such the Cybertruck front end. You know what I mean? As it opens up.
Oh yeah, it looks just like the front for sure.
And it, I mean, all that space. I mean, that's going to be amazing for.
It needs to be you and me and our luggage.
Right.
And our luggage, if our luggage doesn't fit in there, we need to pack a little lighter because that's a lot of space.
That's crazy.
Yes, especially like groceries. It needs to be able to take just like handle all of the errands. The thing that was crazy to me was just seeing not only the autonomous CyberCabs, but also the Model Ys. So they had a combination of both going around. And at one point, I posted a video where it was like 8 of them all in like one area, just like going around. And it was just what they did with that demonstration. I mean, they had 20 to 30 acres of demoing that happened. I mean, they rented out all of Warner Bros. It wasn't just a subsection. They created a whole map. And you could literally, at least when you got in, you could select different worlds or different places to go to in the map. So it was like literally kind of going in, selecting the navigation. And then you could also select the games you wanted to play while you were, or the videos you wanted to play. Interstellar, I mean, just, they did it. And then the design inside was super minimalist. All that you really had access to outside of like the cup holders and the armrest was the window opener. And then all it was just open door, stop ride, and then you could select any of the theater stuff that you wanted. So, I mean, the whole, for me, like, I was just personally just really shocked with what they actually like delivered on. I was just expecting like a huge demo of FSD along with the CyberCab, and then they rolled out the Robovan. I think the one thing, in my opinion, I do think that this is a very forward-looking perspective. We're still on the cusp of like FSD becoming like, hitting level 5. I mean, but with actually Smart Summon, Auto Park, and FSD 12541, what we have, like, you just got to connect all three. And I was talking to Joe about this the other day. The first iteration of the Cybertruck FSD has been a game changer. They did a really good job. I thought there would be a lot more interventions, but it's been really like just seamless, and it handled San Francisco just super well when I took it there outside of Lombard Street. And so for me, it's like, I still think like it kind of like with SpaceX, like getting to Mars, like that's the future, but it's still a bit a ways away. And so I think for me, that was like that's where I felt like I was really in the future when I was at the event. But then the other perspective was, this is what it's all about. And that's why I think they really made this come to life. I mean, to be on like a stage, like, pretty much like where they create movies, it was just like the irony behind it all. That's what really just, it was completely open bar. They had a bunch of food. And it was, there was probably 1,000 people there, it felt like. And they had different points where you could actually do the robo, the
pickups.
Get the whole experience. Yeah, the pickups. And so, and you could stop it mid-ride, and it would say, oh, if you stop it, it's going to be like, it's going to notify someone or something, right? Because, you're stopping in the middle of the road. But like we at one point, the guy next to me wasn't really comfortable, but I just started hitting it, and then, you have it go, because it's like, it turns back on immediately. So yeah, it was just like, when you think of like New York City, Los Angeles, and some of these other places, this is like what the future will look like, right? Just all of these cars going around.
So I want to address the cost issue real quick, because to me, this is the most exciting part. Matthew Donegan Ryan caught something that I didn't notice before I made my video in terms of cost savings. And that is, in the door, there's no wiring. He could not find any wiring. Now, obviously there's some wiring in there, but because the window does roll down, but it's very hidden. There's no buttons. There's a lot of things have been skipped. If you're going to skip any amount of that wiring, look at all the wiring that goes into your dash, all the controls, all the nonsense, even in a simplified Tesla. If you're going to save $20 per door, just $20, that's $40 a car, million cars a year over 10 years. That's $400 million over 10 years. So if you look at this car, and it's going to be, Tesla's cost will absolutely be in the $20,000 to $25,000 range once they get up to scale. Now, compare that with Waymo, who starts with a $50,000, $60,000 car and then has to strip some stuff out, add in all the sensors and nonsense, which, forget the cost of the equipment, just the retrofit is expensive.
Right.
Where with the Tesla's version, the car already has all the stuff. All the cars have all the stuff they need, and they can start by manufacturing something with all that nonsense stripped out. That's how you get a car that's going to cost 1/5, 1/6 of what the competition does. If Waymo's cars can do 150,000 paid miles, that means that $1 a mile has to go to the cost of the purchase of the car. That's insane. You do not have a competitive product at that price.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be crucial for a lot of companies. Hans, did you want to touch on that?
Well, the thing that I was going to talk about was actually, and I'd love to get John's perspective on this, but from the viewer's perspective, what I saw there looked to me like it was every bit as dynamic and complicated of a driving environment as anything that Waymo deals with in like Chandler, Arizona. And that, like, obviously they aren't licensed to operate this on public roads, so it had to happen on this, private environment instead. But to me, what I saw looked like a product that was within striking distance of Waymo's functionality today.
Yeah, I mean, the environment was as you would normally see, right? Like, I mean, they actually had the Cybertruck police vehicle from Unplugged there. They had a bunch of people on bikes going around. You had Model Ys and a bunch of the CyberCabs running around. And then you also had a bunch of people, like the pickup spots had people there, so it like was navigating around that. But then it also dealt with congestion because there was, again, situations where there would be like 5 to like 8 of these cybercabs just in like one section. And so, I mean, it definitely you didn't have people like running out like you'd see in San Francisco or some of that stuff. But it definitely was a complex, situation. And they had a bunch of people just, like throughout the whole event on the side. And so I was able to definitely like navigate through all that stuff. But it definitely was like not necessarily staged. It was definitely like realistic in what to expect. But of course, there was some of those things that, um, like a person jumping out in front and some other stuff. But even when I would get into the cybercab, like it was still able to like see the people in front of it and then go around it. So there's, I'm by no means like I think that they can easily tackle all that stuff. But yeah, this is, if when they get this experience to do this in like a major city, it's going to be, easy to roll out because again, their general autonomy approach is going to be able to handle the scale, unlike any of these other companies where they're just tackling one city at a time.
Yeah, I agree with that. So all of that aside, the chat is going crazy with the inductive charging. So I figure we should probably hit on that because without any charge ports and anything like there was two things I talked about at the event I was at yesterday, and there were two things that I really worried about, and that was how would the automatic vehicle get to somebody who had like no arms or whatever, and they were going to hail a cab, you know what I mean? So the doors opening was one of those things, and then charging was another. I never really bought into the whole snake charging thing. It just seemed like way too over engineered, and you would have to place those at every single. It just seemed like way too much. But inductive charging seems like really smart. It seems like the way to go, and the doors opening wide enough for anybody with any handicaps or anything like that, and that space in the back seemed big enough to slide your wheelchair in and stuff like that. I mean, it just seemed really incredible.
If it's not for, these are all the things you need. Do you want someone whose whole job it is to plug and unplug all the taxis all day? I mean, that's crazy. That's too much work. Now, I'm not saying everyone should go inductive. I don't know. I haven't seen the efficiencies and all that yet, but this makes sense. You just the car knows where to park. It parks and it charges, done. And the same with the seats. What's Waymo going to do? Remove all the seats to put in taxi style seating so that it can be cleaned more easily? This car is purpose built from the get-go, and it all the pieces come together. So yeah, you don't want to add all the complexity, even if somehow Waymo could build a car as cheap. If it didn't have inductive charging, if it didn't have seats that could be easily cleaned, it's already a no-go.
Yeah, for me, I mean, like I think back to what Joe was saying, partially in that, you can't. Well, even what you were saying too, Brian, is like you can't build at scale with some of these crazy costs. Like when you think of like the arm that has to come in, or like we were mentioning earlier, like Hertz, right? Like you think of all the people they had to go to the superchargers and charge the vehicles. Like those are just not scalable ways. But what can you do? You can scale with with this new infrastructure, or just like the charging underneath the car. You can just put a pad or something, give it electricity to charge the car. You don't need to dig up the ground. It's literally something that can
Yeah.
just um, easily be set up. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. I think Tesla presents the future, and then what do? As they learn, they end up like reiterating, and then ultimately finding the best possible way to market and run these the whole experience, right? Like I think that was the thing about the whole thing, whether it's the charging, whether it was just being in Warner Bros. And they had this whole stage thing. It was just, you know, this is the future. This is why, like, in 2018, this is why I bought the stock. This is why I wanted to get to know other owners, is because Tesla was doing something that was so far ahead that no one could even fathom even then. Like my coworkers back in 2019, I was like, buy a Tesla. They all own one now, 5 years later, because it's the best vehicle. So, but the charging, I think, like there's no way. It's kind of like Lidar when they were talking about just the infrastructure that you have to set up in like a Waymo vehicle versus one of these. It's like the cost savings is going to be huge, and you just can't scale some of these other ones. Brian, were you saying something?
One complaint I've heard as well, we don't need 2-passenger vehicles. We need 4, 5, 10, whatever. Look, we already have the 4-seaters, 5, 6, and 7-seaters. Those already exist. We have millions of them. If you need that, order, the Uber XL or whatever they call the larger one. But most people only need 1 or 2. That is the most common number of people in it, and there isn't currently a vehicle like that. If we can make a vehicle like that and make it ridiculously efficient, let's fill that need and let the other millions of Teslas fill the other need for people who want more space or need easier access. I mean, the door hole is quite large, but it's low. I can understand why that would be a difficult situation for someone, but great, get an X instead if that's the kind of egress you need.
Yeah, I also want to point out that there was a study done on passenger taxis and Uber rides and stuff like that, and over 80% of the rides are 1 to 2 people. It's usually never more than that. So just knowing that, I mean, obviously Tesla did their research in that regard, but just knowing like over 80% of the rides are like 1 or 2 people, like it's crazy. I started Ubering day for yesterday, and it's been like 1 person most of the time, like, and they're just like tripping out on the Cybertruck because I had to put Model 3, but it's a Cybertruck.
So funny enough, we have Jan. How's it going?
Dude, Jan's on an all-nighter, man.
Well, yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Did you
Jan
like
was
the event
on.
so far?
Jan was on all the big streams yesterday. He was on with me on mine with Herbert. He was on Farzad's. So yeah, he's getting around and he looks sleepy.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm very sleepy, but I think it was totally worth it. Also, like it was super interesting to see what we've like Tesla had to offer, and it's so funny to me because somebody, a friend of mine from Zurich, actually shared this morning that the news cycles here in Switzerland, for example, he scrolled through and nothing was about the about this reveal, and it's so funny how overlooked this thing is, because I'm still amazed by the results that we've seen, because people tend to forget that this thing is an autonomous vehicle, and nobody is as far as Tesla to have a concept like this. I would call it, like, if you would call it a concept, it's not a concept, it's a reality in my opinion. It will take some time, but I still think that yeah, I mean, 20 cars driving around autonomously. That's the statement I would say, and that's something that's just crazy. And even if the Tesla bots, for example, were oh, wait a second.
Yeah, could you just talk louder or raise your volume?
Yeah, I will try to be louder. Wait a second. You want to switch over? I have an idea. Sorry for the bad audio.
One thing I'll jump in and say real quick is this is the first vehicle Tesla has made, apart from the Semi, that isn't left or right-hand drive. So exportability goes through the roof.
Oh man,
is the audio now better?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so
Yeah.
now I switched to the phone that was connected to Bluetooth. So I think it's interesting to see that, with the concept that when you have more, like many cars driving around, it's different than just having, I don't know, a good concept car doing something like this. So it's unprecedented in that sense, also what they've shown. And that this is real. This is actually real. And you can see it that you have already automated or actual smart summon, as of course. It's crazy to see the developments unfolding now, especially from the European perspective, where we don't have stuff like this. So this technology is interesting to see. I think it will take still some time, but I think in the next 1.5 2 years it's going to be significantly more interesting, and FSD will go with it all the time. It will improve and that's undeniable, and there is no system out there that's this advanced. So I don't know why this thing isn't buzzing more. In my opinion, I think it's overlooked again, like always. It's so funny to see that. So what's your opinion on that regard?
Well, I would say that reusable rockets is overlooked. Starship launches is overlooked. I had a friend who lived in Texas who had never heard of the Starship program, and they'd already done, I think, 3 of the fully stacked launches. I'm like, you live driving distance to this, and you don't even know about it. So I don't know, man. I think the world's getting too focused on everybody's individual interests to have pop culture anymore. What is popular?
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like this is especially the launch yesterday with what they did. Like, this is perfect for like an Amsterdam. This is perfect for like the major European cities. Like, when you think of just like, imagine the Olympics is going on and you have all these CyberCabs going around. I mean, that's what like I imagine. And what you see even coming into LAX today, I mean, the amount of congestion you had. I mean, my Uber driver literally took me to the arrival section because he knew I was going to save 20 minutes. But there's so much congestion happening that these CyberCabs are meant for those type of things. And you get all of the personal vehicles off the road, and you just have these Ubers running, these CyberCabs running around. That's going to be, what's going to be, I think, a good
attention in the terminal.
Darn it, I kind of spaced out there. I forgot what I was going to say. I was too busy reading our private chat.
Yeah, but like John had made a really good point here. I actually look. Funny enough, today I will publish a video about exactly this. That I'm gonna play out a European scenario. Yesterday I've teased it on FutureAza stream, and it's exactly that. Because when you don't own a car, for example, because in Switzerland we have good public transport, then you arrive by train and then you need to do some errands. And what you're going to do? Of course, you're going to summon a Robotaxi and let this thing drive you to the store to get some groceries, maybe 3 or 4 bags to buy even a bigger grocery list. And then you move on. You go further. You go maybe to the bank to withdraw some money or something like this. So the ATM or something, and doing your errands. And then you go home. And then the Robotaxi just does it for the last mile, and this is sufficient enough of a use case to have this deployed, I think.
So I do remember the question. John, you were there, you saw it, you rode in it. What is the size of it? Can you compare it to another vehicle on the road so we can understand the form factor?
Yeah, I would say it feels like the size of like a Toyota Corolla, but a little bit more compact. I mean, I got in and I felt very comfortable. So I'm like 6'2", so it was perfect size as far as that. I did not feel cramped. The person next to me had enough space too, and he wasn't a small person either. It definitely felt like smaller than probably like a Toyota Corolla, and obviously a little bit narrower, but not quite. I mean, it definitely had like the front obviously was big, and obviously I can imagine the front has a lot of space, which we just saw in one of the videos we were posting earlier. But also the front, it'll be really interesting because the front is pretty big as well. I mean, there's a lot of space in the front, um, and even just seeing the Falcon Wing doors up. Just really makes it look futuristic. So, there's definitely, at least so comparatively, it feels kind of like probably like the size of like a Ford Focus, so it's like a little bit smaller, but it definitely, is very compact, but yet very spacious. Because again, you're just taking two people. You got the front and the trunk, and there's just a lot of space. So, um, yeah, it was definitely very spacious. And again, inside there's like no buttons other than the screen. I had to look around for like 30 seconds or like actually like a minute because I was trying to put up the windows because I was like having my Instant 360 go up the top and stuff, and so I actually had to find like where is this, and it's on the right hand side, right by the armrest. It was like right here versus like over here. I was like trying to push it up and pull it down and stuff. So a lot of things that they're still changing. There was no also armrest, the little handle to like if going too fast or something. They, Tesla got rid of that with their Model 3 anyways, and well, all their vehicles. And so that was definitely something there. But yeah, I think, I think one question that I had is like, when do you guys think that this is going to become real? Maybe the Robovan's a little bit further ahead. But like, I think in the past, Elon's been talking a lot about the H2 of 2025. Now it's like 2026, potentially before 2027. But for me, seeing FSD, Auto Park, Smart Summon, this is becoming like all you need to do now is pair all three. And even if it's not perfect, you're like, again, that last 1 to 2% is always going to be the hardest. But it's crazy how far ahead they are. And again, all they need to do is pair all three, and then next thing you know, you park in front of the Costco. It goes and parks itself. You come out, it comes to you, and then it drives you home. I mean, it's so I wasn't sure when you guys think like when we're going to start seeing this like realistically based on obviously Tesla's timelines and potentially even like when are they going to connect all three of those things, actual Smart Summon or AS, Auto Park and FSD.
So I'll go first because my answer is quick. I can't see that far. I can't see beyond the horizon. So it could be a year they're ready, and in which case they would get cracking on the once they can see it's a couple months out, they'll get to work on the factory, and then the factory will be a year and a half to get serious volumes up, but they could have small volumes sooner than that. So year to 3 minimum is my guess.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. I'll agree with Brian because I'm thinking as we watch the ramp up of the vehicles, this does seem a little easier. If you noticed from that one video of the trunk, it has the seats can't lay back. Like that's a wall for that space. So I think this just goes together very, very easily, very quickly. I think it was smart of them, like we were pointing out, without the electronics, too many electronics. Nobody's going to have to figure out a door handle. You know what I mean? Like you have a fully autonomous Model Y pull up, you're going to have to tell somebody, push the fat, pull the skinny part. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to get it. But with this, the door just opens, you know what I mean? And they're not going to have to fumble with how to do the door handles or any of that. It doesn't need a rear glass because there's nobody that needs to see out the back of it. It doesn't need mirrors because it's not a person driving it, so it doesn't have to adhere to any of these laws that we think. So I think it'll go quicker than we think, and I think the ramp up is what is what is going to be the only holdup, because it's a new process, as we saw with the Cybertruck, that it takes a little bit of time to ramp up.
Hans, do you?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really anticipated for the event was that they were absolutely not going to give us any details about the new models that are about to come out in the first half of 2025, and that they were only going to show us new cars that were either the Robovan or no steering wheel, no pedals, because they don't want to tell you the fact that they're planning to exit 2025 with significantly more capacity than the 2 million that we have right now, and that they're going to be shipping these new models, because, you know, unless they're ready to start deliveries almost immediately, they're not going to make that product announcement. And so then the other thing that relates to is the fact that supply chains need to ramp smoothly and continuously. So we are not going to have, you know, millions of these CyberCabs produced in a single year when the prior year there were none. And so the supply chain from here to there really has to ramp up in a smooth and continuous way. And that's going to have to go through whatever these smaller, you know, adaptations, or, you know, whatever the different new models are that are going to be produced on the existing lines, but that we're going to move to that capacity of roughly 3 million units per year. So we are going to see, you know, expanding sales. We're going to see new models. We're going to see, hopefully, Elon is, you know, correct in saying that in the back half of 2025, we'll be able to start offering a ride hailing service that is unsupervised with Model 3 and Model Y. The timeline for that and the timeline for delivering cybercabs in 2026 sound like mostly green lights to Malibu timelines. If you've read the Reentry book by Eric Berger, so that's how SpaceX likes to talk about Elon time, is like, you know, you can technically drive to Malibu from one of the locations in 30 minutes if it's in the middle of the night, there's no traffic, and every light is green. And like, that's how Elon a lot of times thinks about timelines. But the fact is, most of the time when you're making that drive, it's traffic and there's lots of red lights. And so instead of taking 30 minutes, maybe it takes you 2 hours. And I think that, yeah, on both fronts, the CyberCab and the opening up of an unsupervised robotaxi network in the back half of next year, I don't think those are full green lights to Malibu timelines. Like, I don't think those are that optimistic. I think they're more reasonable than full green lights to Malibu, but they are not easy either. Like, it's going to take a lot of effort and execution and a lot of things to magically go right. So, you know, there's room for those to be put back, but I feel like, you know, there's a good chance that we'll actually hit those timelines.
Jan, you want to say anything?
Go ahead, Jan.
So my prediction is also in the ballpark of you guys. I don't see it as early with the Robotaxi deployment. It makes sense. Like Brian also said, this needs to be produced. I think what would make sense in the meantime, kind of, because I don't see FSD, because I always think, of course, about global rollout. That's something I focus on. So global rollout means Europe and European regulation of FSD. We still have time then, a little bit buffer time for regulations to catch up. But we all know that, the bigger auto lobby arm is pretty, heavy. I don't know if they will delay it or whatever, but still, it's really, it will take some time. So I think it lines perfectly. But what Tesla could do in the meantime is, like, when in the next 3 years, for example, when maybe FSD wide release is already rolled out and you have like a real robotaxi network in the US, I think it makes actually sense when this thing is launched that you maybe put it out as a compact with a steering wheel for Europe, and then you would have like a transition phase there. This I could see, but that's just a very specific European market here. But yeah, I think 2 years is reasonable for the network, maybe 3.5-ish, 2.5-ish, I mean. And for the Robotaxi, maybe 3 years until everything catches up with production and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think we're going to see the Model Y roll out with, let's say, really close to being like fully autonomous first before potentially we even see the Robotaxi, because I think there's a lot of regulation. So,
So John, when do you think your car that you have today, whichever one, will be level 4?
I'm thinking by the end of next year, which is, like I said, my Cybertruck has been able to drive through San Francisco, and like when in San Francisco, if you're not familiar with it, you have like these insane inclines, right? So you have to autonomously be able to like hold the vehicle at a peak, and then more importantly, half the time I couldn't even, me personally, because obviously the Cybertruck windshield is like deep as hell, like I could not even see over the heel, and my Cybertruck could see it, right? You also had a ton of these vehicles literally in the middle of the road because people are moving, and it's a one way, there's 2 lanes in the road, and it just went through it, and it was not only able to handle oncoming traffic, but it was able to handle cars in the middle of the road seamlessly. And then you also had, you have people like walking out in the middle of the street. And San Francisco can be a very busy place. And then also too, the amount of markings that happen in San Francisco are like crazy, because you have the trolleys, you have the buses, you have bike lanes, you have, and it's been something that's been able to tackle, but the Cybertruck being able to handle and as big as it is, so the CyberCab and even the Model Y should be, the problem is a little bit, I would say, not as complex because of how big it is. The Cybertruck is versus the Model Y, and again, they were doing it today. The Model Y. So even if you take out the CyberCab, they were navigating around, this 20 to 30 acre lot with the CyberCab already, and you're literally watching this Model Y go by, and it's like, especially they used like I think every single Model Y was white seats. So you literally were able to see these like bright pop when you would look into these Model Ys, and there was nobody in them, right? Whereas the Cybercab, I believe it was like all of them were black interiors, and so it was just like a stark difference on just like what is available versus like what's not, because and they still, it felt like they still had more Cybercabs on the road than even Model Ys. At least I guess maybe it just depends on like where they were in the path, like going around. But there was a ton of Model Ys doing it. So if that's possible, I mean, like I said, they already have 3 pieces of the puzzle. They just need to connect it and then tune the crap out of it to make it really good. And I haven't released the video just because it's a busy week. I took my my Model X to Costco, which is and Trader Joe's on a Sunday afternoon. And again, I would pick a target, and I actually, because I was taking a video, I would actually get close to the Model X and walk with it as it was going. And sure, it's a little slow. I mean, it has a max speed of 6 miles per hour, but that's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you want safety, and for the most part, not everybody is going to need to go quick, right? So, I really do think like in the next year they could definitely take it, because they're at level 3-ish. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but stepping into level 4, I think is definitely within possibility. Versus, I think at the beginning of the year, I still felt like there was a huge couple of leaps that they've had, but ever since they turned on the neural network and really retrained everything, it's just been, FSD is really, in my opinion, just leaps and bounds from where it was.
So, John, I have a question for you. You were there. You got to see it. You got to touch it. I saw a couple of people ask on videos, metal or plastic. And of course, every time the handlers would say, "Oh, it's the specs will be up on the website." No, they won't. Is it? But just reach over and touch it, for crying out loud. Do you know what the skin is?
Funny enough, I didn't touch the skin.
Yeah.
I would have, like, in my opinion, I would assume it's like this one, because it's a prototype. It was probably more like it wasn't. I don't think it was a stainless steel, but I would assume that because they want to make the safest vehicle, they'll go stainless steel, especially because the Cybertruck will go down as the safest vehicle ever made. So I think that the CyberCab will be stainless steel. Like, there's just no. I don't think they're going to do carbon fiber.
I don't think they'll do stainless because it does have it has to be stamped out like the DeLorean was, and it's very stainless is a real pain to work with. It's very difficult material. So I don't know if it there's no reason it couldn't be extremely safe and still have a plastic skin. And plastic is very easy to mold consistently. You injection mold it, every piece comes out exactly the same, provided you're using, reasonable equipment. And that would, again, help with build quality and build speed. I can't see it being a carbon fiber or any kind of composite because that takes too much time to make, where with molded plastic, it just pops out of the machine like within seconds. So, the other question I had was there's speculation by myself and others that there is no frunk. And that's why you have so much legroom, is they took all the stuff that they would normally try and jam right up against the firewall and just gave the frunk away because the front doesn't look like it opens easily the way it would on a 3 or SXY. It would open more like a Cybertruck, but it doesn't have seams in the right place. The seams go all the way to the sides. And with the amount of space you have in the back, I'm not sure you need more space. Did you see one that was open, or is it just a confidence that it probably has one?
Just confidence that it probably has one, depending on what they're putting in front, unless they're putting like the full motor there. I think personally, it's a huge. It's a pretty big front, right? And I would just assume that they would be able to pop it. But also too, it's not, as we saw with the front opening, you don't need it. So it just depends on what they're using that space for, and how much, like, the powertrain and any of the other items that they need to run they take up, right? But knowing Tesla, just if there's room, they're gonna definitely put a front in it.
So two things. I had talked to somebody just recently who had worked on the CyberCab, but before it was even called that, and what they had was front wheel drive motors and no all wheel drive, no rear wheel drive. It was a front wheel drive only. So if they do compact everything into that space, I could see like a small frunk maybe, but maybe that's all that room, because as you can see with the dash of the Cybertruck, you have like most of that space is being utilized by components, and you end up with that small frontal area for that. So maybe something like that, you open it up and there's just like just a small area, kind of like how it is on the Model S. So maybe that's what they have. I would think that. The other thing I was going to say was that when you were in it, because I know a lot of people were talking about the touch and feel of it, but for those of us who remember Saturn vehicles, they were like a plastic composite, and they were very durable, very strong. I remember being at a state fair once, and they had hammers, and people were just hitting the Saturn doors with the hammer, and it wouldn't dent. And they were like, "See, it's not like aluminum." So I can imagine them doing something like that. I know you didn't touch it, but I could picture it being plastic.
Yeah, I touched the interior, and the interior was just very simplistic, but very well made too. Obviously, all of the typical, especially in the new Highland 3, a lot of that felt like the build quality was there for sure. Even the door, because I saw the door come down, and I was just, touching it, at least everything in the interior. it definitely was an awesome build. At least inside, it definitely did not feel like. I mean, at least from my experience, with Saturns, it definitely did not feel like a Saturn or like a Ford Focus or a Ford Fiesta. It definitely felt like at least these prototypes looked very well. I mean, even obviously some of the issues that they had with the Cybertruck prototype, they had.
We definitely need to touch on Optimus before
we will do that. I have one last question. This is for everybody in the group. Scale of 1 to 10, how cool is the Robotaxi?
Oh, it's a 10 for me.
And for those of you who doesn't want your vaccine check for free,
Definitely 10.
if it doesn't fit our sizer, we will
100% 10
for free. Okay, just keep in mind every
Nice.
For me, it was a 10. I
only
mean,
getting in line,
we had the
we don't hold the boarding process.
Cybertruck
For those of you with those
like
extended
vibe
bags,
to
if
this
it
whole
says
thing.
it will not fit
But
our
this
sizer.
literally,
If
I
you don't
felt
want your
like I
vaccine check
was
for free,
in a
zip it up
comic
so we don't
in the
have to
future
check your
of
bags
like
for free. If you have strollers, car seats,
2075.
walkers, that's
You
not
had the
that
Robovan
yet.
coming.
Do not line up so we
Even the
don't hold the
wheels.
boarding
I mean,
process.
the wheels. If you
As I
look
mentioned
to
earlier,
put them
this
on
is a
any other
family
truck,
flight.
some of
That
these,
means
I think there's been
everyone
Cybertruck, but
traveling
like
in
these
this
crazy
flight are
Cybercars,
family, so we
they
will not
look
be boarding at
ugly.
cameras
But
this
on
time.
the
Just pay attention to the announcements because they will be by numbers from 1 to 9. As
It
soon
was
as you get on
great.
board, try not to
And
block
just
the way with
everything
your factors
fits
right
super
behind
well.
you so we can
So,
keep the boarding
I
moving.
just
Once
thought
again,
that was.
we need everybody's cooperation and help.
You can barely hear John with the announcement going in the background, but I get the gist of what he's saying.
Sorry.
But
Let's talk Optimus. I'm ready.
Yes, Optimus.
All right, let me just hit this real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I literally actually some dude, I think someone sent me, Alex Bangul actually, Jan, you would know this. He sent me a video. Someone stole my video. It got got 1 million views. But I had a full-on conversation with Optimus, a full-on conversation. I was talking to him about where I live, what was the hardest thing about being a robot, where he lives. He knows that he lives in in Palo Alto, and so I thought it was like, again, this is like them having the robots rolling out with the CyberCab. Everything just went hand in hand, and the fact that this is the future, and people are just saying whether it was like semi-autonomous or if it was kind of like being helped in the background. All that to say is that it was very interactive. It heard my questions and it was like popping off answers within seconds. So it was definitely very robust, very inquisitive too. And it, like I said, like I could see this as being like our future. Like you're walking around your house, you're walking on the street, and these things are just doing deliveries, raking the leaves. I mean, it's crazy, and they're all going to have names. They're all going to have maybe small little personalities based on who their owner is. So it was pretty, like I said, it was like I was actually kind of shocked because originally, like when I went up to it, it was kind of like I asked the guy it was probably a Tesla employee. I was like, "Hey, can you take a video?" I was like, "Oh, this is like the Tesla robot. This thing's insane." I was not expecting to have a conversation with this thing. And he's asking me where I live. I'm asking where he lives. I'm asking him what's the hardest thing about being a robot. He's like, it's like learning how to do all these things. It's like literally what his answer is. And asking him too, he's like, oh, I live in Palo Alto. And I'm like, this is where I get all my inputs and where they're building. I'll leave it there. Let's go next.
I don't know how much of that was actually real. I know a lot of people there were concerned about the degree of teleoperation, that it might be a little too much. And I think that's a concern for the analysts looking to see AI development is they need transparency to know which parts are simulated and which parts are real. The movements, amazing. So natural when the bartender was out there in the first little clip at the end of it and he's getting ready to do drinks and he's making hand gestures. I said, oh, look, another dude in a suit. Wait, look at his wrists. Oh my, that movement is very organic. But the conversations, less so. Those seemed too organic. I'm not convinced yet. Well, and yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, so I need to jump in here because I think I really like pixel peaked and I watched every Tesla bot video there, and also from the movement. Since I'm such a good dancer, I know my ways around movement. So, so what I think is happening, I also saw the movement patterns of the Tesla bot, and it is, of course, it has a demo mode where it does the things that it also did in the trailer with the hand movements, and the looking around was exactly the same movements. So this was one. So also the walking. This was actually the AI capabilities that can walk around. And the teleoperation part, I would say, is at the bar and also interacting with it. But I think it really doesn't matter as much, because it was about the having the vision kind of the interaction of the Tesla bot. Like also John said, like this was the amazing thing, because that's the first interaction you have. And obviously, or I thought maybe they had Grok integration already, but this will take time. I I can imagine that it's very difficult, but the thing is why they need teleoperation still, and it makes so much sense, is that at first they needed to kind of make the bot the way that it has human movements, and now they even developing the hands. So my guess is to have it even more precise, to learn that the algorithm can really learn the hand movements of a human operator, that it can simulate this and be very human-like. And that's why it's such a big job. If it was mainly teleoperated and the stations, and also with the interactions, I think this is so important, that the connection between the teleoperator and the movement of the teleoperator and the robot is really mapped very similarly. And I think they did a great job with that, because the bot could move like this, because we saw how it moves very human-like, because the human operates it, but still this can be learned by the AI. And that's so interesting to see for me. So this was just a step before, like, but it's still very impressive, because there were parts that were autonomously, there were parts that were a demo mode, and there were parts probably that were teleoperated. But I think it's astonishing, because it's about the interaction. You see the things deployed already, and even this use case as a teleoperated device, I can totally see it already having a huge benefit for marketing purposes, because I'm for marketing. I see that really, like, it's crazy. I would buy it immediately.
One quick thing, even if it's teleoperated, how quick it was responding was next level.
Yeah, I think like Brian was saying real quick before Hans goes is I don't think it really matters that much, because again, like Jan reiterated, it's you're seeing it. It can actually do it. So that's really all that you really need to know, is that it's capable of making these movements. And yeah, I mean, Wall Street might not get that or whatever, and that's fine. But the fact that nobody in the world has ever done this, I mean, we're really spoiled, right? Here you had robots interacting with people, autonomous vehicles driving themselves, and people have the audacity to complain about the nitpicking of it all. It's like you've never seen this except in movies, and you still want to not believe. It's wild to me.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, like, the point of this event was to paint that picture of the future. And if you just look at the history of Tesla events, Elon pushes really hard to try and put on something where you can really envision, what that future is going to look like. And so, if it is the Starship unveil, for example, and like everyone knows, well, that specific Starship is, not going to fly. That's just something that is in the shape of a Starship. And that's, a pathfinder, and it's a waypoint that we're moving towards. In the same way, I think that the future where humans and humanoid robots interact in a seamless, natural way is exactly where we are going. Are we going to be there 6 months from now? No. Was there teleoperation involved in what we saw last night? Almost certainly. Like, if there was no teleoperation last night, that is a technical feat that is even more incredible than anything else that Tesla has ever accomplished in their entire history. But all that to be said, will there be noise around the fact that yes, there was teleoperation? Agreed, but it's incredibly impressive to think about the fact that those types of interactions are the direction that we are headed with fully autonomous Optimus robots, and that future is insane. Like, we're talking about a world that is more different than, like, all of the progress that was made from probably 1940 to 2020 is less progress than the progress between here and that world where Optimus is able to interact so naturally and so seamlessly with everyone. And people just don't understand the magnitude of that overall change.
And we're ready along with your last name.
So sorry, I have some background noise happening right now. I don't know if anyone
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm not at an airport at all. But so we're at the top of the hour. I want to hit this panel with final thoughts. Like, what were your big takeaways? I'll probably just start off first because someone's not on the loudspeaker right now. I think my biggest takeaway was the fact that and I'm everyone's talk, so I'm probably stealing this as far as that's the whole point of what Tesla did is they painted the future, and whether it was teleoperated or not with the bots, the fact that they're walking around.
Number 5, right after, right hand side, main boarding name. Once again, if you have a mobile boarding pass, we're not scanning. We're doing a metal boarding. You can
we know that
Tesla
is solving real world AI, and more importantly with Grok that they're going to have access to, and being able to literally just work in the factories. No one else is doing what they are doing, and they were able to paint the picture with robots walking around right now. Last night with the Robovan, with the Robotaxi. This is what the future looks like in these big cities. Just there. So that's what I thought that they knocked out.
No final thoughts for me. I've said enough.
Hans.
Yeah, I am excited about the long-term future of the company, the things that we're going to accomplish, and the positive ways that that's going to impact the world overall. It's going to be an incredibly chaotic journey between here and there, as it always is. And I'm here for it.
Nice. Jan?
So for me, it was astonishing to see the launch of the Robotaxi, because you really don't have a steering wheel, you really don't have pedals inside of this thing, and this can drive. Because we still have, with FSD, we still have the control part, but there we didn't have the control part anymore. And this is a huge factor, I think, also for the psyche kind of about the whole event. What we saw, it's about autonomous devices or entities, let's say, because the Tesla bot, for example, also was interesting because this wasn't actually big time presented, but the videos with the interaction from the people were the things that, like, this was the most astonishing thing in the after hours, kind of, to see this, what is happening there. And it's amazing because we know that the lines are already there for every technology just to progress, just straight forward. It's very straight now, the road. And it's so interesting to see that the movement of the bot is working. It's the AI can learn that, obviously, and also the Robotaxi already operates on American streets. So with FSD, with the beta version, I've tested it. It was amazing. Even if it needs some small details to iron out, but I'm sure that they will do it. It's a straight path, and that's never been like this before. So that's my verdict of the whole event. Kind of, it's just going straight line. It's good.
Yeah, I can close it out. Yeah, I agree with all that. Thank you guys for coming. I think it was an amazing event. I think as with these events, we always see that things play out. The chess moves that Tesla puts in place, we see them play out over the next few months to years, and this is going to be another one of those things that people won't get until they actually do get it. But thank you guys for coming. What an amazing event! What an amazing day! Amazing time for everybody to be here. Truly incredible. Follow and pester these people. FutureAza, Tesla Owners SV, Jan Tesla Fix, and Hans C. Nelson. He's really hands on with these podcasts. So
you mean hands free?
It's Hans free.
Hans C. Nelson. He's so handsy. I've met him. It's terrible. I loved it.
Thank you, everybody. Peace.
Bye, everybody.